Okay, guys, we get it. We've read the comments, and some of you think we're just plain lucky, that we happen to time the market right, and in some ways, you're not wrong. We did benefit from some of these economic shifts.
But we also had a strategy, a plan, a blueprint that we followed relentlessly. And that blueprint, with some tweaks, can work for you too, especially if you're looking at achieving financial independence in 2026 and beyond. Hey guys, I'm Amber.
And I'm Jared. We are on the money quest. We're documenting our journey and sharing what we learn along the way.
We're passionate about helping you achieve your financial goals, and today we're diving deep into a comment that really made us think. The person asks, I love your discipline, but let's be real. You guys got lucky. You hit the COVID housing boom and some lucky stock picks. How does this work for the rest of us starting in 2026?
It's a valid question, and honestly, it is one that we thought about a lot. The economic landscape has changed pretty drastically since we started our journey. Inflation, interest rates, the job market, it's really all a lot different than when we started this 20 years ago.
Yeah, so today we're not just going to talk about our story. We're going to use our story as a case study and combine that with our current knowledge to create a blueprint for you. A step-by-step guide on how you can achieve financial independence or financial independence, retire early in today's economy.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Were we lucky?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say we were.
I mean, we went through the COVID crisis, but we also gained equity with our house at that point.
Yep.
When we purchased a new house at the COVID point, and then the next year it boomed, the equity in it. And then we also were buying at a lower end. We had lower interest rates. We got a better price per square footage because the cost of materials didn't explode through COVID.
Yeah, at that particular point.
So we did really, we looking back on it, like, it does sound like we were lucky.
You know what, there's another thing too, that we lived in the Lake Norman area, so that's like just north of Charlotte, North Carolina. That has been one of the hottest real estate areas for the last 10 plus years. It's been like on the top 10 list. I think it's been number 1 or number 2 where people in the US are moving to. And it's a lot of it's because they have the jobs. They have like Bank of America corporate offices there.
Most of the
Lowe's corporate office. A lot of corporate offices are in Charlotte, and a lot of job opportunities and relatively cheap houses compared to like the Northeast and California. So there's been a huge migration of people from the Northeast, including myself, but longer time ago. So I think there's some luck with that. And then Charleston is also a great market to be in. So I think we've been lucky geographically as well.
Right, there wasn't really a housing crisis per se in the places where we've been.
We were in 2 very strong real estate markets.
Yeah, and then there's also the stock picks. Like, we did strategically pick stock picks, and again, it is, the market just happened to do its thing when we were, we picked it at the lower end, and we bought in there, and then we rode it out to the top. So, I mean, you can say that it's luck.
Yeah.
In that sense.
You know what though, I wanted to mention that. I think we had mentioned like we invested in Palantir and Nvidia, which we did, and they did do really well, but that wasn't like we happened to pick those 2. We picked about 50 different companies that we looked at through a rigorous list of criteria and filters, and we're going to do a video to talk about that in detail. But there were probably 30 companies, honestly. It wasn't just those 2. Those 2 were some of the best, but we also had I think we had invested in all of the Magnificent 7, and especially in Nvidia and well, Tesla was in there, but I don't know if that did so great. And then Palantir, and we also invested in Palantir before it was hot. Like, it really wasn't doing that well, and it's just a company that we were interested in before it really went kind of hyper growth or whatever it did.
Right.
So there's companies like that. I mean, we had Adobe, Meta, Microsoft, Google, Apple, all of those pretty popular stocks. So it really wasn't as much luck as it was, benefiting from those main companies that even if you just had invested in index funds, you would have done well, because those are the largest companies in the S&P 500 for anyone that's buying index funds. I think they make up 40 to 50% of the entire S&P 500 is made up of these 7 companies.
We acknowledge that timing did play a part in that, but the timing wasn't the only factor. We were already saving and investing aggressively. We had a financial safety net. We were positioned to take advantage of opportunities when they arose.
And that's the key takeaway. You can't control the market. You can't control luck, but you can control your actions and your preparation.
Now, what about 2026? The housing boom is gone, stock picks are harder, interest rates are higher, the blueprint has to change. But the fundamental principles, they remain the same. Let's break down the core principles that are essential for financial independence, regardless of when you start.
Okay, first and foremost, this is a huge one that I think a lot of people forget about. Spend less than you earn, which sounds simple, but it's apparently very difficult to do. And it's hard for us to do too. But this is really the bedrock. And so you also need to track your expenses, create a budget, identify areas where you can cut back. And by the way, we recommend using an actual software to do this, not just doing some. I mean, you can do it in Excel, but I think it's really hard to track that manually, and that's something that we're going to stick with. So we started off using Mint Financial to do our budget, and now we've been using Monarch.
Yeah. And what's really cool about Monarch is we were able to add in a plugin that allows us to, it kind of categorizes Amazon purchases for us, and that's where we do purchase a lot of our items from that we can't necessarily track very easily. Like it's easier for us to track our groceries and our gas and everything, because those are specific places where we go. But with Amazon, it's like we can buy anything from Amazon.
Yeah, it can be in like 20 different categories in your budget, and it's hard. If you're like us, it's kind of hard to go in there and be diligent enough to go in and then categorize each transaction.
So it's nice with Monarch, it does that for you if you have that plugin. I think that's something that's been really beneficial for us.
Yeah, I agree. It's like a plugin for Chrome and I suspect maybe other browsers, but that's a very unique feature that even Mint Financial, which was built by Intuit, and they phased it out for some reason, but it didn't have anything like that either. So definitely a unique feature.
And we honestly, just being honest with you guys, we didn't start our budget until 2012. So there was a point in time, 6 years, where we didn't have a budget. And then in 2012, we decided to start a budget and start tracking everything. And it is an eye-opening experience. So that is one thing that's kind of like a non-negotiable.
Yeah, and so don't be like us. Start tracking your expenses from day one on your FIRE journey so that you can get there that much faster. We were just kind of wasting money for 5 years, not really tracking our spending or knowing that we were spending $1,000 a month at Michael's on arts and crafts stuff.
Yeah. Next, live below your means. This means avoiding lifestyle inflation as your income increases. It's about consciously choosing to spend on things that bring you true joy and saving the rest. So for us, an example was we decided to sell. We were at one point, we had 2 cars, and then we moved down to just having 1 car. And a lot of times with our cars, you know, we've talked about before, where we have a strategic purchase in mind with the car, and then it's 3 years old and it has 36,000 miles on it. So it's not gonna like run down on us, but it's not a new car either. But at that point, we did have an older car, and we just decided to sell the Prius that we had, and we kept our 4Runner, our 2004 4Runner. And we went down to 1 car with us because he was remote and I was a stay-at-home mom. So it worked for us. And I think if that's something that also you have the ability to do, I definitely would make sure to see if that works within your lifestyle.
Yeah. And you know, another thing like this, for example, the vehicle that we were just talking about is the Toyota 4Runner. That's a very reliable vehicle. It's a reliable company that makes that vehicle, Toyota. So definitely, you know, be very strategic, whereas some other manufacturers may not make such a reliable vehicle.
And don't just buy for looks. Yeah. That's the big thing. I think when you're on this FIRE journey, you're not buying things for looks. You're not buying a house for looks. You're not buying a car for looks. You're not buying clothes for looks. You're really being strategic about your purchases. Number three
is a huge, probably the biggest ones on this list. So number 3 is get rid of high interest debt. This is credit cards, personal loans. These are the biggest obstacles to building wealth. Prioritize paying them off as soon as you can. And I think, like when I think about this one, I think about credit cards and those interest rates that honestly we don't even look at, because I don't know if we've ever had a balance in our lives. Probably at some point we were doing something silly.
Yeah, but at the beginning of our whole journey.
With those interest rates potentially getting up to like 20-25%, that's just crazy. That's so difficult to start your financial journey, you know, like the FIRE movement, for example, with that debt, just sitting there with a 25% interest rate. So do whatever you can to get out of that. And it's probably going to have to come back to cutting your expenses, cutting your cost of living, so that you can get that debt paid off, and then also never get back into that debt and don't use credit cards. I saw something on, I think it was an article that I saw from Dave Ramsey, and he talked about credit cards that have points. And he said that you end up spending about 10 to 15% more by using that credit card. So that certainly doesn't justify those points or that extra money, whatever the promotion is that credit card companies are offering.
You know how you get $1,000 back from Discover? You spend $100,000. How does spending $100,000 to get $1,000 back ever make you rich? Where did you take your math class? Really? This is absolutely ludicrous. Chase is kicking your butt. Their building's bigger than yours and their furniture's nicer than yours. You ought to have a clue by now.
So it's probably just better for all of us if we don't use credit cards at all.
And it's probably a mental game too. Like you think that, oh yeah, so I'm going to spend this and I'm going to get something back. So it's like you think that you're doing something good because you're spending and you're getting something back, but really you're not, because it's not amounting to anything.
So get rid of high interest debt.
Yeah. And finally, create an emergency fund. This gives you peace of mind and prevents you from going into debt when life happens. And we all know that it will, and it always does.
Okay, now that we've walked through the foundation and we've got that set, let's talk about building wealth in this economic landscape, the 2026 landscape.
While we can't promise the same rapid housing gains, we can focus on building income streams. Here's where there's an opportunity for career advancements, asking for raises, developing new skills, changing your industry. So being open to those things and having the confidence to go and figure out like what are you really worth? What is your time worth to your company? And then also like in your downtime, finding ways to develop new skills so that you can be worth more in those wins. And I know it sounds like counterintuitive to the FIRE movement, but I think in order to get to that point, you're going to have to make, more income. You can't just continue making the same income and then expect something different. You can also, there's side hustles. I think that is something, if we went back to 2006, actually starting those side hustles before, so that we had something built in early retirement. It wasn't so new. It's not like this is all new, but it would just be nice to have those developed. And
I think it gives you that confidence too to do it, and that to know that you could potentially quit your job or retire early, and then you do have that backup right there. You've got other income streams.
Right.
The more that I see these corporate layoffs and these Magnificent Seven companies laying off 10,000 people at a time for various reasons and based on the economy, and with AI, which is actually a big issue for my particular profession in project and program management.
You just saw it.
Yeah, I just saw like 600 people that I worked with at Lowe's get laid off a few weeks ago, and that's in addition to like 300 that I saw a couple years prior. And that's a relatively small amount, but I think some of the bigger companies are laying off like 10,000 people at a time. So anyway, with all of that volatility and just the uncertainty of a lot of jobs today, I think it'd be great to have multiple streams of income that you can rely on, and not just one. Next, let's talk about smart investing. While picking individual stocks might be riskier right now, we can focus on the broad-based index funds, or ETFs, exchange traded funds. This spreads out your risk and aligns your returns with the overall market. And a lot of people have been doing this, and they talk about dollar cost averaging, and I think that's still a very reliable way to do it. So that way you get the average price over a long period of time, and you just have a consistent amount that you buy over a consistent period of time. So like every week, every month, whatever that frequency is, you just do that consistently, pretty much as long as you can. And then the idea is that even in the ups and downs, you'll average out to a great price in the long run on your investment. So those are some things to think about, and those are some ways to reduce the impact of market volatility in the long run. Another aspect of smart investing is making sure that you're taking full advantage of retirement accounts. Those are things like 401ks, IRAs, whether they be Roth or traditional, and also taking advantage of the employer match. So if you guys have an employer match, you really need to make sure that you take full advantage of that. Contribute the amount that you need to get that full match. And we've talked about this before, but I had a CEO of a previous company say that even if you feel like you don't have the budget to contribute that amount, you could almost go and get a loan or even a credit card, depending on the match. You could potentially get a credit card that you're paying 25% interest on. And if that allows you to then max out the amount to get that full contribution from your employer, in this odd scenario, that actually would make sense if you had to do that. But I'm guessing that you could probably cut your expenses and find room in your budget to make that work without, having credit card debt. That's kind of a joke, but it's just funny that that could be a reality. I even worked for a company where we had a 100% match on 401k. Now, granted, I was only making like 42,000 and I was like 23 years old. But anyway, other people in the company were making a lot more money and they were not maxing out their 401k. So they literally would get 100% match, dollar for dollar, up to the legal government amount to the max, which was 15,000, let's say at the time, 15 to 17,000 during that time frame. And I had coworkers that would not max that out, and they just would have been better off getting a credit card and then maxing it out to get 100% match.
So, what about housing? The boom might be over, but real estate can still be a good investment for you. You can consider house hacking, so living in one unit and renting out others. You can look for value-add properties that you can improve and increase in that value. You can explore renting in a lower cost living area and investing the savings. There's also a lot of long-term perspective for home ownership. You build up your equity. There's a stability in the housing costs. And I think for us, one thing that we are doing is that part of our house, about 500 square feet, we're turning into a monthly rental that will have a kitchen. It will have a place for someone to eat, sleep. It'll have its own bathroom. It'll have its own entrance. So it'll all be separate from our house, but it will cut our mortgage in half. And that is a big thing for FIRE. I think a lot of people, that is where a lot of their money goes to, is their mortgage. It eats up so much of their budget.
Yeah.
And housing in general, whether it be renting or mortgage, it's a big part of their budget.
It's a huge part of most people's budgets. And I think one of the things that you could also think about, when we lived in the Lake Norman area, we couldn't really think about renting our house out nightly or monthly unless you lived on the lake or you had a really desirable property. There weren't a whole lot of people that could actually do that and make money. But now we live in the Charleston area, and I know there's a lot of places like that throughout the U.S. that are sort of a tourist type of location. So you could consider moving to maybe closer to a tourist location or even a national park kind of thing. I know when we were doing our 7,000-mile road trip, those are great places.
Colleges.
Oh, colleges. Anywhere that has that nightly rental option or a monthly furnished rental. Mm-hmm. Those are places that you could consider either moving to or taking a step in that direction. Or I think if you were like in a city, mm-hmm. that would be a great place. But moving into a location that's not just in suburbia where people would just do an annual rental, an unfurnished annual rental, like that's probably most common. Mm-hmm. That could be a good way to do a house hack as well. Okay, so let's get practical. How does someone start from scratch in 2026? Here's our proposed blueprint.
Step 1, the assessment. Track your income and expenses for at least a few months. Get a realistic picture of your current financial situation. Calculate your net worth along with that.
Step 2, the foundation. Prioritize building an emergency fund, and that's at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses. Aggressively pay off high interest debt. Make that a top priority. For example, the credit cards that we talked about, which could have interest rates up to 25%.
Yep. And step 3, the income factor. Actively explore ways to increase your income. Research high-paying fields, develop valuable skills, consider a side hustle that you actually enjoy doing.
Step 4 is the investment plan. This one's also very important. Start investing early and consistently, like we talked about with dollar cost averaging. Automate your investments. This is huge, and it's something that we've done our whole life, and that's really served us well, just to get that money automated out of your account and then into an investment.
You don't have to make that decision. There's no I could go and buy this or I could invest. It's like, nope, that goes to investments. Yeah. That goes to 401k. You never see it, and then you live off of the rest.
Consider a simple portfolio that you understand of broad-based index fund and ETFs that don't take a lot of time, that don't require you to have to do the research looking at individual companies, unless you like that sort of thing like we do. Max out your tax advantage retirement accounts like we talked about. That's huge. Definitely make sure you take full advantage of that. And don't worry about timing the market, trying to get in at the perfect point. Just get started. I think we've both seen a lot of research that even if you bought at the market peak and then you went through a full recession or crash, studies have shown that eventually that market will rebound and you'll be back, in the black, and you'll be making money and having good returns. Even if you buy at the highest point of the market and then endure a crash on like day 2 of your investments, it's still going to be good if you're investing in the long run for a long period of time.
Step 5, the housing decision. Evaluate your housing needs and options carefully. Don't just follow the trend of buying a big house. Consider renting, house hacking, or moving to a more affordable location. Weigh the pros and cons based on your own circumstances and your long-term goals. And another thing that we do with our housing decisions is that we go onto Neighborhood Scout and we actually look at the appreciation rates, and we see, like, if we're going to purchase a house in this location, is it going to appreciate? Are we going to see the value increase over the next 5, 10, 15 years? What does that look like? Because you don't want to just buy a house where it's just going to be flat, or it's, people are moving out of. You really want to, you are putting money into something. You need to be strategic about it. You don't just need to buy where you think.
And that's a big advantage of renting, buying over renting, is that you get that appreciation rate. And the crazy thing is, I think the average for appreciation rates is like 3%. But in most of, and again, this probably goes back to the luck and being in good markets, but a lot of times we've been in areas that those appreciation rates have been like 7 to 10% for multiple years in a row. So, and that could happen. So if you guys are looking, for example, in an area like we were looking in Charleston, and you could say just buy any house in the Charleston area, but what we did is we looked at the specific neighborhoods and areas within Charleston, and then we targeted the ones that had the highest projected appreciation rates, so that we would not only just have a house to live in, but we'd actually have a good investment over the long run. And also an area that's up and coming, and that's just kind of a good thing for everybody if you're in an area that's going to get better and better and is growing, and it's not losing people, losing tax dollars, and losing investments in future business. And for step 6, the long game. FIRE is really a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient, stay disciplined, reevaluate your plan regularly. Don't get discouraged by market fluctuations or temporary setbacks. And we've been on our journey for over 20 years. We've been through at least 2 bear markets. I don't know what you count COVID as, because that was like
this is weird,
terrible volatility, but only for a few months. That was kind of a weird one. But yeah, don't let that set you back, and just have confidence that the system works and that over the long haul, this will work.
So let's address the discipline part of the comment. We're not special or superhuman. It's about developing strong habits.
And I have a good example of this. I think it goes back to budgeting. And the interesting thing is that as part of our journey, when I was making $42,000 and it was my first year out of college and my first job, I started putting together these habits over time, and you build that budget. And for me, in my mind, even though I kept making more and more money every year, I still just felt like that was my budget. I knew what I needed to spend in these areas, and I was frugal on things. And then later, when I fast forwarded and had over $1 million in net worth, I had a couple moments with some friends where they would ask, I think I said my watch, I was going on a hike with a friend and my watch had died, and they were like, "What kind of watch do you have?" And I was like, "Oh, it's an Apple Watch, like a Series 3, which I think is one of the first ones they ever made." And my friend was just like, "Man, you're one of the wealthiest people that I know in my friend group." And it's just shocking that you would still have an old iPhone or an old Apple Watch.
I know.
And these things are just kind of funny stories, but it just goes back to my mindset is still set in the beginning when I first set up my first budget, and I was making $42,000. To me, just because I make more money or made more money recently, it didn't really change that mindset that I had built through discipline for many, many years. And so that's kind of a cool thing that it went into autopilot, and I didn't really have to think about it.
Yeah. So set up those markers in your life and make sure that you continue them even when things change in your life. It's just something that you stay consistent on.
So it's also about mindset, believing that you can actually achieve your goals. Even with the cards you've been dealt, focusing on what you can control. And that's a really important part about thinking about what you can control, and you can't control, everything else. You can't control Donald Trump. You can't control politics. You can't control the weather or oil prices, it seems.
You have to set those SMART goals, the clear, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound SMART goals. And I think also looking at that throughout the year and knowing that like you have your plan set, and if things go awry, which they always seem to do, you know you have your plan.
And have a backup plan.
Right.
Have several backup plans and contingency planning. Also, one of the other things that Amber and I have done is we've done like, this is from me in the corporate world and project and program management, but have a roadmap for your life, you know, and look at that together with your family and think about what the future looks like and go out the next 3, 5, 10 years and have a plan of how you're going to execute your financial plan and other things, just so that you actually have a plan and you have backup plans. So something to think about.
Mm-hmm. And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. Find ways to enjoy your life now without derailing your financial progress. It's about striking a balance. And here's where you can really find inexpensive things to do, whether it be just free. Like, I mean, we live near the beach, so we can go to the beach. We love our parks, even just finding nature trails to walk on. Even if you feel like you just want to treat yourself to a coffee, like just going to get a coffee, or, you know, a lot of times now we don't necessarily go out to eat, but we'll go and get stuff for a picnic. So we find ways to still enjoy the things that we do and enjoy where we live, but we don't overspend.
Yeah, one of our favorite things to do is to take a picnic to the South Carolina Aquarium in Charleston. That, I think, actually has one of the best seats. Like, you could go to the fanciest restaurant in Charleston and you wouldn't get a better seat than what you have at that aquarium. And we sit like outside
by the stingrays.
By the stingrays, yep. And then we can look into the whole Charleston Harbor. Usually there's dolphins right in front of us. So we found that that's a great place to just take like a picnic lunch and just enjoy the Charleston Harbor, enjoy the dolphins. It's really tough to beat, and it really doesn't cost that much money, more than you'd normally spend at a grocery store.
Yeah. So you have to find that joy. Still find joy in the things that you do. It's not about not living. You still have to enjoy your life. And there are many, many ways to find low or inexpensive ways to still have fun.
Yeah, and focus your money on the things that you do enjoy, and don't waste your money on the things that you may not really enjoy or don't even realize that you're spending.
Yeah.
So to answer the original question in the video, did we get lucky? Yes. Does that mean FIRE is impossible for people starting in 2026? Absolutely not.
No.
We do not believe that.
No. The fundamental principles remain the same. Spend less, earn more, invest wisely. The strategies for achieving those principles just look a little different now.
The landscape has definitely changed from 20 years ago when we first started this, but the destination has not. It's still about building a life you love, free from financial stress.
It takes time, it takes effort, it takes discipline, but it is possible. So we covered a lot today, and we know you probably still have questions. So let's address some of the common ones we see.
Okay, let's talk about the first question. What if I can only save a small amount?
I mean, here's where you can really talk about and look at the consistency. If you continue just adding just a little bit, whatever you can, whether it's $10, whether it's $20, whatever it is, if you can just be consistent with it, over time, that will grow and compound. And there's also fractional shares now, so that you have the ability to invest in these companies, in these big companies that maybe have, you know, $1,000, like the stock price is $1,000 or more, and you can't necessarily afford that, but you can afford a fractional share of it, and you can still see the value and the growth in those.
And I think you'll be happy that you did, and I think it's very rewarding to make that initial investment and then see the growth. Don't look at it daily, don't look at it weekly, but look at it like we were talking about over a long period of time, over several years. And chances are that the value will go up, and you'll be happy and rewarded, and you'll feel good about. You'll be motivated to invest more.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
To stay consistent with it. Another question is, how do I deal with market volatility? And here's where we've talked about the dollar cost averaging before, and then that long-term perspective. So over time, if you just continue averaging in, then it's shown, all the research and then all the history shows that over time it continues to grow.
You can also look into, there's a lot of different sites and even AI like Gemini and ChatGPT. They do a good job of projecting what the future will look like. And they can even account for stock market crashes like recessions, pullbacks, basically the severity of the crash. They can calculate that. And then forecast what the potential growth would look like. I think that's given me a lot more confidence just trying to think of like doomsday planning sort of thing, that if these bad things happen, what would that do to my portfolio? And to see different ways to allocate your assets to weather that storm. So there's things like back testing, Monte Carlo simulations, and there's a lot of different sites like we said. We'll try to share a link to, I think it's Portfolio Visualizer. I'll share that link in the comments below.
Mm-hmm. Another question is, what if my friends and family don't understand or support my FIRE goals? And I think this is a thing where you have to find your community. You have to find the people that are going to support you. And I think it's also, you know, for you, you've been the person in your family that has shared that. And I think it's leading by example. Even if they don't agree with it or understand, you continue going and sharing your journey and sharing your motivators with your family and whoever it might be. And one day, maybe it'll actually click inside their head and they'll come and ask you. I mean, your brother is a prime example. Like,
yeah,
when he started out, you know, on his journey, he came to you and he asked you, and now he's on his own journey.
I think he's surpassed the teacher, which is kind of interesting. He's a family medicine doctor, and so he's making a great income, and he also has a lot of money saved for retirement, for potentially early retirement. So it's been pretty amazing. And like Amber said, I haven't really had a lot of support in my family or community, and I've mostly been met by people that would say that what we're trying to do to retire early is impossible. And I think that's pretty sad. A lot of the people that we know or in our families, like Amber's dad is almost 70 and still working to this day. My dad retired when he was 65, so worked pretty much his entire life. And now both of them have had some health struggles recently. So that's just kind of sad to see that they worked almost their entire healthy life to provide for their family, you know, and had to work these kind of grinding jobs for so many years.
Yeah, I think it's about communicating that you have a goal and you don't let other people derail you in your journey.
I think it's fun to prove people wrong, prove to them that this can be done, and show them. And it will take a while, but persevere and have confidence that it works. And like Amber was saying, try to find the right community.
Another question is, isn't FIRE only for high earners? And I think here's one we can debunk a little bit. We've talked about in previous videos, our combined income over 20 years, so the 20-year span of us in this journey was $88,000.
So that's been the average combined income.
Average combined. So there was a point where, you know, I stopped working and I was a stay-at-home mom and he made more, but combined over the 20 years, it was $88,000. So, you know, we never earned, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, actually.
It is, but, you know, it was the hand we were dealt and like what we chose to do. But here we are, and, you know, it's a testimony to sacrifice and discipline and hard work and patience and a drive that we know what we want out of our life.
And we know what we don't want.
Right, we know what we don't want. And
so hopefully that helps you guys to debunk that, and just don't feel like this is all about, you know, just for high earners. And I think a lot of it also comes down to trying to find another way to be creative with your solutions, to do house hacking, to move to a different place, to find just to find a different way in all these aspects, invest in a different way, do things differently.
So we'll dive deeper into these topics in future videos, but we wanted to cover the basics today. Remember, everyone's journey is absolutely unique.
Okay, so we don't want you to just watch these videos. We also want you to share your thoughts with us. What's your biggest challenge or your biggest question about achieving FIRE in today's economy? Let us know in the comments below. We really read every single one, for better or for worse sometimes. But we do read those comments, and we do want to connect with you guys. And we want to also better understand where you're at, so that in our future videos, we can make sure that we're meeting you where you're at.
And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Share it with anyone who might benefit from this blueprint.
We are on this money quest together, guys. Let's keep supporting each other. Let's be that community that we're looking for, that we need to be successful.
So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.